Hey y'all, it's your girl Missniecytv, and I'm here to do a review for Sistas Season 1, Episode 16. The episode picks up where left off, where Geneva told Rashida and Bridget that she stabbed William. Rashida tells Bridget to go inside and grab her keys, right? And Geneva has the nerve to open her mouth and say, "You don't do that shit to me." And like, girl, he wouldn't did it to you if he didn't start with him first. How are you gonna react like this to a situation that you clearly started from the entire beginning, with Javon being Anika daddy, to you not telling William that Javon is Anika's dad and that you're in love with him, and to the whole fight where you started throwing things at the man. He told you to stop. You didn't stop, so he showed you what it was. But you're not going to tell Rashida or Bridget the truth because you want to seem like William's the bad guy in this situation. The whole time it's you. So as Bridget's inside grabbing the keys, Rashida asks Geneva, "You sure that he's dead?" And Geneva's like, "Yep." Aaron runs in behind Bridget and he asks what's wrong, and Bridget's not in the mood to talk, so she kicks Myron out the office and she calls Stephanie and she basically let her know that Geneva stabbed William. And I'm like, "Bridget, little do you know, you call the main person that's a part of this love square, love triangle, whatever you want to call it, because Geneva is so jealous that Tiffany's with Javon." Now that I think about it, the reason Geneva really blacked out like that is because Javon told her that he doesn't want to be with her, and she basically missed her chance, and then she goes home to see William in the house with a girl. That really set her off. Bridget comes back out and she asks the question, "Where's Anika?" And Geneva's like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna find him. She's gonna find him. You think you left her there?" Geneva was so concerned about Anika being in the house with William and a girl there, but she's not concerned about leaving her daughter in the house where she could possibly find her stabbed. Rashida tells Geneva that she can't drive like this, and Geneva's adamant about going to get Anika, right? So she pulls out the parking lot, and Rashida rushes to her car, and she immediately calls Pastor Jeff, and she's like, "Are you on your way there?" Rashida tells Pastor Jeff that Geneva says she killed him, and Pastor Jeff is like, "What are you talking about?" Rashida tells Pastor Jeff that Geneva told her that she stabbed William in the chest and he's laying on the living room floor. She doesn't want Anika finding him, and Pastor Jeff is like, "Oh my God, I'm on my way." Rashida's like, "You might have to break the door down." Then we see Tiffany call Javon, and I'm like, "Tiffany, that's not the right person to call in this situation. You and Javon are the main culprits, and the reason why Geneva's acting like this." But she calls Javon and she lets him know that Geneva stabbed William, and Javon is like, "Is he okay?" Tiffany's like, "I don't know, but I'm on my way there now." Javon is like, "Just tell her not to say anything." We see Pastor Jeff make it over to William and Geneva's, and he immediately rushes in. He asks Anika, "Where's your daddy?" Because Anika's standing on the stairs, and she points to where William is laying at. I'm like, "Oh, that poor baby's gonna be so traumatized." So Pastor Jeff immediately calls for an ambulance, and while he's on the phone, Anika's in the background and she's like, "My daddy's bleeding and he won't wake up." I'm like, "Oh, that little girl is so traumatized. I feel so bad for her." While Jeff is on the phone with the ambulance, he tells him to rush over to the address. The EMS dispatcher is asking all these questions, like, "Do you know what happened? Is there a threat to your life? Is the person that stabbed him still there?" Pastor Jeff is like, "No, there's no threat to my life. I don't know what happened. Just rush over." He goes in the background like, "Is my daddy okay? Is my daddy okay?" Pastor Jeff is trying to do his best to comfort her, and that's when Geneva runs in and she's like, "Where's Anika?" Geneva grabs Anika and Pastor Jeff is like, "Take her out of here, take her out of here." So Geneva takes her to the kitchen. Pastor Jeff is still on the phone with the dispatcher when Rashida and Bridget walk in, and they're like, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" Right? Pastor Jeff is like, "I don't know, but just pray." They're like, "Where's Geneva?" Pastor Jeff is like, "In the kitchen." So the ambulance finally make it there and they're doing CPR on William, checking him out, make sure everything's okay, right? That's when Tiffany and Javon show up, and the officer's talking, and she's like, "Who's the owner of this house?" And Jeannie was like, "I am." They're like, "Well, we're gonna need a statement. Do you know how this happened?" Javon is like, "It's clearly an accident." The officer's like, "We don't know that and we need a statement." Javon tells the officer, "I'm Javon Holiday, I'm her lawyer, and she will not be making a statement." The officer's like, "Well, this is a homicide investigation." So Javon looks at everybody and he tells them that they have to leave so that they can do an investigation. And Geneva's like, "I have to change Anika first." Javon looks back at the officer and he's like, "Let her change the baby and then we'll leave." In this situation, I really feel bad for Pastor Jeff, and he's probably traumatized, and he'll probably definitely need to take some time for his mental, because in a span of like 72 hours, he saw his son overdosed, and now he's seeing William laying on the floor stabbed. I pray that Pastor Jeff will be okay mentally. Over in Naomi's hotel room, we see Naomi in the bed and she's celebrating the fact that her plan succeeded. Hakeem is like, "Where my money at? The plan succeeded, I need my money." And Naomi's like, "I'll be on the plane in 2 hours, you'll get it then." Hakeem is like, "I better have my money." Naomi's like, "You don't think I'm gonna pay you?" Hakeem is like, I honestly don't know that right now. Naomi's like, you made me the happiest woman on the planet. Hakeem is like, I ain't trying to hear all that until I get my money. Naomi's like, that's my money. You're nothing but a street worker. And Hakeem was like, yeah, you right, I'm nothing. I don't need nothing. I don't want for nothing. Naomi's like, is this some type of reverse psychology that you trying to run on me? Hakeem is like, what time you land again? Naomi's like, are you trying to set me up? Hakeem is like, no, because if you go down, I go down. Naomi's like, I'm glad you know that. So she's like, give me 2 hours. I'm going to shower and then I'll meet you there. Hakeem is like, okay, take your time. The way that Hakeem is talking, Franklin is still alive and they're working together and they're setting Naomi up. Over at the hospital, everybody's there and Anika's there. And of course, she's asking questions like, what happened to my daddy? And Geneva's like, Anika, please. Yeah, because Geneva's literally living with ghosts. Anika breaks everybody's heart when she says, I don't want to be with you. I want to be with my daddy. So Rashida talks to Anika and Anika's like, what happened to my daddy? What happened to my daddy? Rashida's like, the doctor will come and tell us. Anika breaks her heart once again and she's like, my mommy is so mean to my daddy. And I'm like, a child can feel when there's something not right in the house. Geneva might be thinking that she's too young to understand, but a child sees and hears everything. Rashida's like, you know what? Let's go take a walk and pray for your daddy. You want to do that? Anika's like, yeah. Bridget's like, you know what? I'll take her and you stay. Rashida's like, actually, I need some air. Bridget's like, no, I take her and you stay. Her eyes avert to Tiffany and Javon. When that baby finds out the truth that William is not her daddy and her Uncle Javon is her actual daddy, that's gonna break her heart so bad. It takes Anika away to get a snack, and Rashida asks Javon, can they talk for a minute? And Javon is like, okay, sure. And the way that Tiffany looks, she's like, wonder what that conversation is gonna be about. When I tell y'all Rashida read Javon down so bad in a biblical way, it don't even make no sense. She read that man from A to Z and Z back to A. Javon is like, what are you talking about? You know what's wicked about it? Only getting out the story. Did Geneva tell you that she was in love with me, and if she didn't leave him, I was moving on, and I found Tiffany, and thank God I did, because what we have is... Javon is like, me and Tiffany really care about each other. Rashida's like, that's because she doesn't know all the ins and outs of what you done. Rashida's like, you need to tell her the truth, and Javon is like, you really think it's a good time to tell her? Rashida's like, either you tell her or it's going to come out somehow. Rashida's like, this is all built on lies and deceit, and the way you start something is how it's going. Rashida's like, if you really cared about Tiffany, you wouldn't be doing all of this. Ron can do is like, see, you're trying to judge me because you got all this money and all these cars and everything like that. Rashida's like, if you want to know, my car is like $600,000 and the other one's $300,000. And you know what? It's not even from my husband. It's from my grandfather. This is generational wealth. He's like, just so you know, we take care of the church. The church doesn't take care of us. And I'm like, clock that. Because he was trying to read and he didn't even read right. Rashida's like, you know who takes care of us though? God. And I promise you that he will take very good care of you. And then Rashida just walked away and Javon just stared at her. Back over in the waiting room, Pastor Jeff, Geneva, and Tiffany are having a conversation. And Pastor Jeff is basically telling Geneva to keep the faith. Everything's going to be okay. And Geneva's like, I stabbed him. And they're like, be quiet. Geneva's like, I did. And then Pastor Jeff is telling her to keep the faith and God's going to forgive her and keep praying and everything like that, right? And Geneva's like, prayer's not working. That's when Tiffany jumps in and she's like, Geneva, this is really not like you. And Geneva's like, whatever, Tiff. And Tiffany's like, what did I do? Geneva's like, why does everything have to be about you? It's not about you right now. Geneva, if you really want to be honest, you're the one that made it about Tiffany. She was just trying to talk to you and make sure you're okay. And you're just snapping at her. So Geneva gets up because she started the conversation and Rashida walks back in the waiting room and Pastor Jeff is like, do you want to tell me what happened with the conversation with Javon? Rashida's like, the truth will come out when it needs to. Andrew, this whole time, a doctor hasn't even come out and told them how William's doing or how he's... Then we see Naomi on the plane and she gets a call from Bridget and Bridget basically tells her everything that's going on with William and Geneva now. Geneva stabbed William. And Naomi's like, she really did that? That's crazy. Bridget tells her that everybody's at the hospital and she should come. Naomi's like, I can't come because I'm still trying to handle that. Bridget's like, okay, but you at least should call and check. When Naomi gets off the phone with Bridget, she calls Javon to see if they'll arrest her as soon as she gets off the plane. Javon is like, yeah, but did you fly domestic and how long were you going? Naomi's like, I wasn't going that long. Javon is like, okay, probably not. Then she's like, Franklin has so much power and everything. Did you hear from... Naomi's like, did you hear from his lawyers? Javon is like, no, I haven't had the chance to reach out to anyone. Naomi's like, that's weird because they probably would have reached out by now. Naomi, I think that man is alive and he's working. Then she tries to talk to him about Tiffany, and Javon is like, right now is not the time. I really have to go, so they hang up the phone. Once Javon's off the phone with Naomi, he walks over to Geneva and he's like, let's talk. So they walk down the hallway into like some type of secluded area. Over at the police station, we see Grayson and Francis talking to the police officer. Grayson's giving all the footage like he said he would. So Naomi's definitely about to get locked up, right? So Grayson's like, I just want to see my dad. I just want to see my dad. Did he suffer? Was it painful? The officer's like, I'll be right back. That's another sign that Franklin's still alive, because why wouldn't they take him down to the morgue or show him or give him a number to contact about seeing Franklin? But that's neither here nor there right now. So Grayson and Francis have a conversation, and he's just crying and venting about everything, and he's mad at Naomi because she doesn't even care, and all she cares about him being rich now. And Grayson's like, I don't even care about that. I just want to see my dad. I just want to see my dad. So Francis is consoling Grayson, and she's like, everything will be okay. You got me now. Sorry to break it to you, Francis. Grayson don't care about nobody but his daddy right now. Back over at the hospital, it's time for Geneva and Javon to have a patient, and he's basically like, I need you to talk to me and tell me what's going on because I can help you and I'm your lawyer. Geneva's like, you really think you know me like that, huh? Javon's like, yeah, I do. Geneva's like, no, you don't. You know what? I'm gonna find a different attorney. Geneva starts a story off lying. She's like, William hit me first. I caught him in the house with a hooker. Everything went bad, and he hit me first. Geneva, why are you sitting up here lying? I know you want to seem like the damsel in distress when it comes to Javon, and he's gonna come and save the day, but Jesus, stop lying on that. Javon's like, well, that changes the story. Javon's basically like, I didn't know he had it in him. And Geneva's like, when he gets mad, he definitely has it in him. You came at him first. Start hitting him and throwing stuff at him. He told you to stop. You didn't stop. So Javon is like, do you have any bruises? And where did he hit you? Geneva's like, he hit me in my face. Javon is like, well, I don't see any bruises. Then she lifts her bangs up and there's this big bruise. I'm like, William ain't do all that. Then she has the nerve to exaggerate the story even more, saying she flew across the table. He's like, let me take a picture of the bruises. Let me take a picture of the bruises. Geneva's trying to back down, like, no, I don't want to do all that. Javon is like, this can help you. So Geneva's like, okay. He starts taking pictures of the bruises. He comes closer to her. They're going over the bruises. Javon is like, I'm so sorry this happened. Back in the waiting room, Pastor Jeff and Rashida are talking to her, and she's like, baby, I need some coffee. So he's like, I could go get you some coffee. It's right here. Rashida's like, no, I need you to go get the coffee, which in code meant go see what Geneva and Javon are doing. So he goes back there, and he catches them in a kiss. And Geneva and Javon are immediately like, he was just checking the bruises. He was just checking the bruises. And Pastor Jeff is just standing there. And Geneva's like, oh. So Rashida and Tiffany have a conversation about Javon and how that's going. And Tiffany is like, I really care about it. Rashida tells her to slow down. And Tiffany is like, I know you sound like Geneva now. She told me the same thing. And they go back and forth about why Rashida's acting that way towards. Rashida takes full accountability. And she's like, if I was acting a way towards you, I'm sorry. And I love you and I care about you. And I just want you to be okay. Then she asked Rashida, what's going on with Geneva? And Rashida's like, I can't tell you. Tiffany's like, I love all of y'all, right? And Rashida's like, we love you too. And they end that conversation. Tiffany, I'm gonna need you to get up and smell the coffee, because why would Rashida want to talk to Javon? They barely know each other. Javon wants to talk to Geneva by himself. It might be about this situation, but I honestly feel like it was something else to that as well. So Tiffany, I'm gonna need you to put 2 and 2 together and make 4. You're putting 1 plus 1 together and trying to make 4, it didn't don't work. So Pastor Jeff comes back and he's like, so that's what you can tell me about Geneva and Javon? She's like, what did you see? He's like, I saw them kissing each other. And Rashida's like, oh my God, that man is a devil. Pastor Jeff is like, you know exactly what to do with the devil. Some time passes and we see that Naomi has made it to the diner where she's supposed to meet up with Hakeem so that he could get the money, right? She sits down. Hakeem is immediately like, where's my money? Naomi's like, you gonna get it. Then Naomi has the nerve to say, I was watching you outside for like 2 hours. Hakeem is like, why were you doing that? Naomi's like, I like to watch you. She's like, you know what? Before I give you the money, I'm going to need something to eat, right? Hakeem was like, you were just out there for 2 hours watching me, and you could have got something to eat then. Naomi's like, I wasn't hungry then. Hakeem's getting impatient, and he's like, give me my money now. And he grabs Naomi's purse. That's when he pulls out his phone and he shows Naomi a picture of what he was done to Franklin, right? And she's like, oh my God, are you that possessive over me? I told you to take him out, but not like that. Hakeem is basically like, You told me to do a job, I did the job, and now I need my money. Naomi's acting all frantic like she's around a murderer, like you didn't tell this man to do the job. She's immediately trying to get in her car, and as soon as she tries to get in the car, she's met with like 5 police officers holding her at gunpoint. That setup went too smoothly. Hakeem and Franklin are definitely working together, and Franklin's alive somewhere, probably in another country. But Naomi's about to be locked up, and she might not see the light of day no more, because she's about to get a murder for hire charge and everything else. Then we see Sarah show up to the hospital. She's like, oh my god, I'm sorry that happened to William. Was it some type of break-in? Bridget's like, can you please take Anika to your house? Sarah's like, yeah, that's fine. And then Rashita's like, you know what, I'll have the kids come check on. That's when Geneva comes out the bathroom and she's like, I want Anika to stay. Rashita's like, you know what, Anika had a trying day and she needs to go relax. That's when Pastor Jeff is like, it's best for her to leave. So once Anika leaves, everybody has a conversation and Geneva starts. She's like, I was outside my body. I was so livid. I didn't know what I was doing. She's like, we just got to keep praying and put it in God's hands. And then Geneva looks over at Pastor Jeff and she's like, I know you're judging me. Pastor Jeff is like, why would I do that? Geneva's like, based on what you saw. Geneva's like, what you didn't see is the fact that he had some girl in my house. Pastor Jeff is like, I can understand how that can make you angry, but why would he do that? Geneva's like, so you blaming me? You're blaming me? Pastor Jeff is like, I'm not blaming you, but why would you do that? She was like, I was livid. He had a girl in my house and all I had to do was just leave. And Tiffany's like, I'm sorry. And the flip switches in Geneva and she's like, this is your fault. And Tiffany's like, how? And he was like, if you stopped when I told you to stop, none of this would happen. Bridget's like, what's going on? And Tiffany's like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And then that's when Pastor Jeff is like, you want to tell her, Siobhan? Rashida tells Pastor Jeff to stop, and Pastor Jeff is like, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to him. Me and Rashida both look like, who are you talking to? Pastor Jeff is like, there's something about being a man and being honest. Javon is like, you really want to go there right now? And Javon is like, you might want to get that beam out of your eye before you start talking to me. Pastor Jeff is like, what are you talking about? Javon is like, you want to tell your wife about Anya and Brenda? Pastor Jeff, who's Anya and Brenda? Because me and Rashida said the same thing. She's like, what? Pastor Jeff is like, you're just making stuff up. No, Pastor Jeff, who's Anya and who's Brenda? Pastor Jeff really sat up here and cheated on Geneva. I'd be really hurt because he was so adamant about loving only her. Pastor Jeff is like, that's not important right now. What is important is that I caught Javon and Geneva kissing each other. And Tiffany's like, what? Pastor Jeff repeats it again. She's like, what? Geneva's like, yeah, he's in town for me. He's only with you to make me jealous. And me and Javon had an affair years ago. And Anika's his daughter. He's like, I'm in love with him. And then she looks over at Javon and she's like, I'm in love with you, Jay. Really, really bad. I really love you. It's like, oh my god, ain't no way. And then Tiffany's just looking at Javon and I'm like, girl, say something. Slap the man, something. Geneva, you need to stand up. Because you're going out real sad. All I know is that season 2 is going to be real crazy. How do you think Tiffany's going to react to this? And do y'all think that Pastor Jeff really cheated on Rashida? I'm just glad that we didn't have to go to the next season without Tiffany knowing the truth. Let me know what you guys think about the episode. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your bell notifications. Bye!